wreck avoidances,
Stay low. He's high, stay low.
daring passes,
Oh, you're gonna get it. Come on, let's go.
silly jumps,
Oh my god, a drive-through.
the thrill of victory,
They're against the wall. Good win, Mark. Stay low.
and the occasional mishap.
My sand crash.
This is the DMLC Racing Channel.
A new beginning with familiar faces. For the first time, Lionheart is going back to its roots. 18 races to determine who is the best and the most exciting form of auto racing on the planet. 200-mile-an-hour Indy cars, inches from disaster or glory. There can only be one inaugural champion, whose name will be etched into the Lionheart history books. Find out next. The Lionheart Speedway Series, presented by DMLC Racing Channel, starts now.
Over a decade ago, IndyCar and Dallara worked together to deliver the next generation of American open-wheel machinery. The goal? Something iconic. The result was a DW12, a car that delivered exciting wheel-to-wheel racing for more than a decade. In 2021, the Lionheart Racing Series returned to its roots with the car named after the man that inspired the series for the inaugural Lionheart Speedway Series. Racing across the ovals of the USA, there have been many twists, turns, thrills, and spills, all leading to tonight's championship showdown. There are still 7 drivers with mathematical chances of championship glory tonight as we get set for an adrenaline-filled, action-packed double-point showdown in the Golden State. This is Auto Club, and this is a Thumbs Up Cancer Down 300 presented by Minus 273. Hello and welcome back to RaceSpotTV and continued coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be joined in a special 3-man commentary booth to close out our season by Justin Prince and Andrew Kinsella. A reminder, you can follow along with live timing and scoring powered by our partners at ATVO by heading to RaceSpot.tv/Indy. Follow along with your favorite team and drivers over the course of 300 miles of racing as we are set for our championship showdown. And with that said, let's dive straight into our sim experience countdown for green. Justin, what fun this has been. The DW12, very much an oval specialist car when you compare it to the current modern day IR18. I should correct myself. I didn't mean to say a decade. I was just so excited in the intro. Half a decade. This car delivered exciting wheel-to-wheel action, closest finishes of IndyCar history as well. But now it comes down to this. High speed, high banks. It's the Auto Club Speedway. A double-point showdown to decide it all.
And it's going to be so critical to be consistent tonight with the double points on the line. And all of this and all these races has led up to tonight. We've seen plenty of showdowns when it comes to some of the tracks, the mile and a halves and some of the short tracks. We've seen fuel mileage races come into play several times. And we've seen madness ensue, and a couple more, including at Kansas last time out, with that wild finish on the final lap with a contact down the back straightaway. Now it's the main question. Which driver can close out strong? Which driver can win a championship? Which team can win themselves a title? So much is left up for grabs tonight, Arjuna. A lot can happen, and it's all so critical to survive at a track like Auto Club to get the season done right.
I mean, you talk about wild finishes. I think that's been the story of the season. Not necessarily just the last race that we did see at the Kansas Speedway. We've seen fuel mileage races. We've seen it all. Here's a look, though, for the final time this season at our driver standings presented by the DMLC Racing Channel. Yes, 7 drivers with a mathematical chance of taking the title away. But Andrew, it's not as easy as one would think, because with 23 cars in today's field, the minimum points that a driver will score for finishing down in 23rd is still 44. So for Alexis Newsom, she's in a pretty comfortable position. Her teammate Robert Malechka III, on the other hand, after missing the first couple of races of the season, a late recruit to this series, he's got it all to do here today.
Certainly Alexis Newsom has the advantage coming in here today, but it's not a big advantage, and it's not as big an advantage as it could have been, as she did get a minus 10-point penalty from that contact with Joe Branch on pit road at Kansas. There was actually a number of drivers who did receive a couple of some penalties from the melee that we saw at Kansas last time out, but certainly while the road might be tougher for some and easier for others, it's going to be a fascinating duel today between all these drivers, and Alexis can't afford to rest too much on her laurels, because you look at Barrett Rolfe, you look at Matt Taylor and Alex Van de Sande, they are not very far behind. So while she may have the advantage over the likes of Joe Branch and Robert Malechka, it's going to be a tight race throughout this entire field here today.
Newsom, though, does have 4 victories to her name. What can she do from here? Robert Malechka III, 6 victories in 12 races. An incredible run for the factory-back team across of Lionheart competition. Let's talk then about these team standings presented by HyperX. And Justin, you mentioned it. There's also a team championship up for grabs as well. Adrenaline Motorsports, after losing Christo for a couple of races ago, 1 point, looked odds on for the championship. Now, though, they've got it all to do. Double points on the line, factory backed with 3 drivers versus Adrenaline's 2. Very much looking like it will swing in the favor of factory backed.
Yeah, but here's the main thing to consider. That changed a lot when it comes to that deficit. Adrenaline Motorsports had a 96-point advantage just a few rounds ago. But the main thing to consider is who's going to be able to keep up the consistency tonight, because all the factory-backed drivers have showed great speed in qualifying and on the ovals in general across Lionheart competition. Adrenaline Motorsports, they've been known for mixing things up strategy for the drivers they do have left. But Joe Branch, who is known for mixing up set calls, he's amongst those who have been amongst the fastest in practice. I'm curious to see how things play out for that, but in other words, if you're factory back, you have the upper hand, yes, but the pressure is on for Adrenaline Motorsports to execute everything right.
Talk a little bit now about your rookie standings presented by Buttkicker, and this has been a series which has really welcomed drivers to the Lionheart ranks. We've seen plenty of these drivers, Alexis Newsom, Barrett Rolfe, even Alexander Van der Sande, Robert Malechka, all making the step up into the premier Lionheart IndyCar series. Ultimately, whoever clinches the championship crown will also clinch the rookie championship. But Andrew, that's what's so great about this series. It's that we've seen new faces join Lionheart, and we've seen just how quick they can be as well.
Absolutely. We've seen how quick they can be, and it's been a treat to watch all of these drivers on this page here. And we've really seen, I think, an evolution of some of these drivers, especially you look at the likes of Alexis Newsom and Alexander Van de Sande. They had an up and down start to the season. They weren't very consistent, but as the season has drawn on and drawn to a close here, they've really gotten much more consistent, really more mature in their driving in a number of cases. So it's been a fascinating series to watch, not from just seeing the new talent, but also just seeing the evolution of these drivers as they've been competing with some of Lionheart's best.
So let's talk a little bit about the series details presented by Minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to use the promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. The return of the Lionheart Racing Series staple, the DW12, in the 7th year of Lionheart Racing Series history in this classic Dallara DW12, named after the Lionheart himself, Dan Weldon. All drivers using a custom fixed setup built by setup guru and RaceSpot commentator Andrew Kinsella, while the drivers fight for their share of just over $7,200 in cash and prize money. Final step of the Triple Crown, we saw Barrett Rolfe take his first Lionheart victory in the second of the Triple Crowns. That was in our virtual month of May at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We've been talking about it over the course of the year. Will it be a veteran claiming the championship? Will it be a rookie staking their claim for championship glory? As we return to the City of Action for the 5th time in the DW12. It's only 1 year have we seen the car that has led the most laps in the race not entered HyperX victory lane, a race that has also ended under caution on 2 occasions. Most lead changes came back in Season 5, a very racy affair, so 36 lead changes over the course of the evening. But interestingly, most cautions came back in Season 1 of the Lionheart Racing Series. That was 8 cautions, 0 cautions, though in Season 3, it is the race that has potential to go green if the drivers can be smart and keep it clean. Closest margin of victory, 0.029 seconds. That was when Andrew Kinsella, defending race winner, not just in the DW12, but the IRA team, took victory to close out the DW12 era. And Andrew, talked to us about this facility. Of course, Fontana's not going to be around in this configuration for much longer, but 2 miles in length, super racy, super high banks, multiple different lines. What are we in for here today?
Yeah, and it's a shame, if you ask me, Arjuna, that this track won't be there much longer. Of course, this is the home for the fastest IndyCar lap in history that was set back in 2000 by Gilles de Ferran in qualifying for a race here in the kart series. This track is, I would almost go with one of a kind. Whereas Michigan has much higher banking, this one is a little bit less steep on the banking, and it really creates this multi-groove facility where you can run the high line, you can run the low line. And the setup here today, there's going to be a big pack at the beginning of these runs, and then the tires are going to start to go away from these drivers, especially the right front. So it's going to force the cars up the track, and the people who can take care of their tires today, they're going to be the ones who are going to find their way up towards the front come the end of this race.
And we are looking at a race that's going to have 4 pit stops. Now the question will be, how many of those pit stops are made under green flag conditions? As for the final time in this 2021 Lionheart Speedway Series campaign, drivers on track for qualifying, 2 flying laps, track to themselves. Pressure is on to go quick when it all matters. Currently the muscle man on top with a 32.372. Barrett Rolfe, not known for qualifying performance, has put it provisionally on top as the muscle man will steal it away. But this is a session where Justin Barrett Rolfe has to finally get a qualifying lap worthy of the speed that we've seen from him in the race itself.
Yeah, his qualifying performances, we've said time and time again, have been abysmal. No poles. But his start average has been in the high teens. It's been ugly qualifying-wise. 31.8 this time. That's one of his best performances this entire season, finally.
Yeah, but only 9 cars have set lap times. We've got plenty of competitive drivers yet to come, and even put in a banker lap as it was. You can see Alexis Newsom will roll herself off a pit lane as winner to kick things off. Dean Moll puts us up into 7th position with half the qualifying session already in the books, building up the momentum. What can you do on lap number 1 here, Andrew, to make sure lap 2 is as quick as you can be?
It's all about making sure that your inputs are as light as possible. You're going to go around the outside of the track, make it as long as possible, try and build up as much RPMs and as much speed as you can. You scrub off just a little bit on the outside here in the corners, and you see the lights on Alexis's dash just going down a little bit, comes back up on the straightaway. It's just flashing just a little bit as she starts to get towards the rev limiter, but she's keeping up the momentum on this outside, and then you're going to see she's going to dive straight down for the bottom, coming off of 4 here, and take this second lap on the bottom of the track. She's even right on the apron here. She's going to have to transition very carefully back up there. And then the key on this part of the lap, Arjuna, is not to scrub any momentum from your car. If you put too much steering input into the car and you start to scrub from the front tires, you're going to lose time all along this back stretch. Similarly, although it's a little bit easier through 3 and 4 because the track does open up just a little bit coming out of turn 4 and then down onto the apron, and 31.809. She is on top of the charts right now, Arjuna.
And that's crucial because there are points that are awarded in qualifying, 2 points, and given how close the championship is, you want to make sure you have the buffer heading into what is going to be a crazy, chaotic race. Matt Taylor, Alexander Van der Sant, and the man we're watching right now, Robert Malechka III, all have done lap number 1. Trevor Malone up to 7th. We'll wait and see what the time's going to be first for Matt Taylor because he's a little bit further on his lappers. Robert Malechka III in towards turn 3 for the final time in qualifying. Matt Wagner 6 pips, Nick de Groot for a top 7 position there. To the line, here comes a man that's been on pole plenty of times. It's a 31.796, and once more Malechka's on pole, Justin.
And for Malechka III, keep in mind, he's got the toughest scenario with how far back he is with the points, with how many races he hasn't started, keep in mind, and with some of the bad luck down the stretch in his regard. There's a chance Robert Malechka III can get the job done if a lot of things go his direction. That's step 1.
Well, let's get ready to go racing as we'll take a look at your butt kicker starting grid for the Thumbs Up Cancer Down 300 presented by -273 here at the Auto Club Speedway. A 31.796 for Robert Malechka III, nets in pole position once more. 5 to his name, now looking for a 7th victory in 2021. His factory-back teammate Alexis Newsom, that's alongside both drivers, looking to try and secure the championship for factory-back. Caleb Bensley had some great performances in the recent months. He'll be alongside Charles Teed on row number 2, while Joe Branch up in the field. Maybe we won't see some interesting strategy calls from the number 28. He'll be alongside Craig Forsyth in the number 72. Matt Wagner, Nick de Groot, row number 4 with Alexander Van der Sant and Barrett Rolfe, 2 championship hopefuls, lining up on the edge of the top 10 with Paul Jenkins and Jess Young, 11th and 12th positions. Trevor Malone and Gary Godso, 13th and 14th, with Christopher Kresge and George Anzaldo on row number 8. Dean Moll, only 0.08 of a second back, but that's only good enough for 17th position. The Muscle Man lines up alongside him in 18th position. Matt Taylor has it all to do, back in 19th position, needs a little bit of luck to go his way. Matt Houston, the final car, to set a qualifying lap time. Tony Schowen, Mike Rigney, and Chris Fowler will line up at the rear end of the field. Tony Schowen and Chris Fowler both have end-of-line penalties to be served here today, and that's why we'll see them from the very tail end of this field here today. Oh, well, there is some championship tension in the air if I've ever felt it, but with that said, it's time to go ahead and go trackside to take a look at our onboard cameras for today's action. Alexis Newsom has the Thumbs Up Cancer Down onboard camera. We put our thumbs up to not cancer down. Fund a power pack by visiting thumbsupcancerdown.com/donate.
With the HyperX onboard camera tonight, it's George Anzaldo. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game.
Matt Taylor has the Graphics Esports onboard camera, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graphicsesports.com.
And last of the onboards featured is the butt kicker onboard. Barrett Rolfe ties his best starting spot of the season. What you see and what you hear is what you feel. For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com.
And the great thing about being here on the iRacing service is we'll have onboard cameras, all 23 cars in our field here today. Prediction time. Let's start with you, Andrew. Who's going to clinch the championship here today after 300 miles of racing?
I think that with her starting position, there's just no overlooking Alexis Newsom. She is in exactly the spot where she needs to be to start this race. And I think that come the end of it, she's going to do exactly what she's done a number of times. She's going to work the strategy, she's going to be patient, and she's going to come out with this championship in her hands.
What about you, Justin?
I'm going to change things up because Barrett Rolfe has been quick throughout the campaign. It's just been about getting the job done fully. He's qualified in one of his best starting spots of the season. I could see him try and get a second Triple Crown victory of the season. Keep an eye on Barrett Rolfe for that title.
I'm going to go boring. I'm going to follow Andrew's call there. I'll go with Alexis Newsom. But competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and we are set for our championship showdown. The Thumbs Up Cancer Down 300, presented by -273. It's a factory-backed front row. Robert Malechka, Alexis Newsom alongside as we get the green flag out in the Golden State. It's a good clean start as here comes the move already from Alexis Newsom, picking up the speed. followed through by Caleb Bensley. Malechka the third having to be a bit careful as Craig Forsyth splits the difference 3 wide, already up into fourth, but around the outside, here comes Charles Teed. Alexis Newsom leads lap number 1. Interesting start there, Justin, but clean, that's what we wanted to see. But crucially for Tony Schowen, he's 18 seconds back from the entire field.
That's because he started from the pit lane and because he started at the back in terms of the pylon. Guess how far he has to roll on the entire length of everyone's pit boxes down the pit lane? That's an extra few seconds alone right there. He needs some things to happen and quickly. But factory back, they're playing things very safely team-wise, trying to swap back and forth, help each other save a bit of fuel potentially here, and control the tempo of the Hornet's Nest.
150 laps, the fuel window anywhere from 32 to 33 laps, and this is what we expected. Pretty pack racing to start things off, but the weather conditions relatively warm when you think about how cool it can be here, Andrew, especially at the Auto Club Speedway. Here on the iRacing service, 23 degrees in the air itself, 24 on the track. Relatively cool, but also not that gusty in terms of the wind.
Yeah, it's a relatively calm night, and that's going to allow a lot more moves, especially coming out of the corners. What can happen here at Auto Club is if it gets too windy, then one of the corners actually becomes really, really difficult to keep the car underneath you. But with that lower wind, it's going to allow these drivers to keep the car underneath them just that little bit longer, be a little bit easier on the tires. And I think that we're going to see some side-by-side action throughout this race, as we already see Barrett Rolfe, Nick de Groot, and Alex Van de Sant going 3 wide into turn 3.
Long way around for Barrett Rolfe, but he's punched himself up +3 up into 7th. Van de Sant not clear of Nick de Groot just yet, but working out of turn 4, able to clear himself as still for the race lead, swapping back and forth. We know just how much of a hard charger that this man is in the 33 car, but he's got to be patient, Justin. He can't afford to get mixed up in anything early in the race right here.
If he wants to fight for the championship, he needs to be able to make it to the end, first of all. One of the main talking points for the drivers on the grid, mind you, was let's hold back any craziness to the final stint. Drivers want to keep things calm. And for Barrett Rolfe, second thing to also consider is trying to make sure you get the right strategy in. Those fuel numbers, you mentioned how tight it could be. Barrett Rolfe seems to be just trying to pick which line to go, see which one's going to be able to push him on forward, but also allow him to make sure he hits his numbers.
Looks like Caleb Bensley will defend there for 6th position, still out front. The two factory-back teammates going back and forth, kind of what you'd expected a race like this, where swap drafting might just build the momentum, keep these cars pulling away from any cars that lose the draft at the tail end of the field. Charles Teed, has had a pretty clean start as well to work himself up into podium contention. Craig Forsyth on that outside line. And in a car like this, Andrew, where there is no in-car tools like we see in the IR18, no front and rear ARB, no weight jacket to play with, what can these drivers do to make sure that they don't run afoul of dirty air?
It's all down to the drivers in this one, Arjuna. Basically, what you need to do is you need to find some clean air through the corners. You also need to make sure that you're taking care of the tires. How do you do that? Well, you take care of the tires by making sure that you're not scrubbing, especially those front tires, because the front tires will give out before the rear tires on this car. So what they're going to need to do is do exactly what George Anzaldo's doing here, is just taking that nice high line, making sure that they're just taking a nice arc through the corner, not putting in too much wheel into the car, because it's so easy when you get into that dirty air to put in a lot of wheel, as we see some really close action here in turn 3, Arjuna.
Barrett Rolfe made it 3 wide, up into 3rd position as well. That was bold, that was brave, that was a move reeking of championship desperation. It has opened the gap up to Robert Malechka, Alexis Newsom to almost 1 full second, and Andrew, that is almost the drafting range in this DW12.
Yeah, I would say that was actually probably not a very smart move on the part of Barrett Rolfe there, because it's really allowed those two factory-back cars to get out and probably break the draft at this point. They're working so well together, swapping back and forth on both straightaways here, so they're really working well together. So Barrett Rolfe, meanwhile, he's the one car in this field that doesn't have a teammate anywhere else in this field, so he's at a distinct disadvantage when it comes to working together with other cars. So I think that what you saw there is he was a little bit impatient, and it's cost him a little bit, and it could prove very costly for the next little while as well.
That gap now 1.5 seconds, so factory back guys out front waving goodbye to the rest of the pack. It will take some coordination from Barrett Rolfe from Caleb Bensley to pull themselves forward back into the contention for race victory, and for Barrett Rolfe, contention for the championship itself. We'll get live points updates across the entirety of the evening. You can see it has swung in the favor of Alexis Newsom, who is still in second. She works her way up into first. It will be 8 additional points to her name. Malechka the third has jumped to third, but as Matt Taylor is duking it out back in 11th position, and as Malechka and Newsom continue to swap around, battle for third and fourth will continue to heat up. Tony Schowen, by virtue of starting back at the pack, has dropped down to 7th, needs some luck, needs a yellow flag to swing in his favor, Justin, to be able to work himself to the front. But what a championship battle we've got on the cards here.
Especially with how things are faring now. Keep in mind, though, Newsom and Malechka the third doing exactly what they're needing to do. Keep up towards the front. And I think Rolfe has realized, for us to have a chance, this pack, I should say, they need to start swap drafting a little bit, try and close back up the deficit. The problem is it's not as clean as what they've done first and second. Then on top of things, you've got a majority of your help still fighting and having a wrestling match for 7th position.
Yep, this is Charles Teed, Matt Taylor side by side. Taylor on the outside does have the clean air, but these cars already 8/10ths back, give or take, from those grouping in front. So they need to be careful themselves that they don't lose the draft. There's already gap between first and third, now almost up to 2 full seconds. Incredible. The question I have now for you, Andrew, is how much fuel saving can you do if you're in this pack?
You can't do much fuel saving if you're in the position of Matt Taylor and Charles Teed here. They're using as much fuel as they can, and they were even 3 and 4 wide for a couple of laps there, Arjuna. It's been some fast and furious action back in the pack, but right now what Charles Teed and Matt Taylor are doing is they're swap drafting here to make sure that they don't lose the draft to the pack that is 3rd through 6th and 7th right now. And it's very important for Matt Taylor to do that, as he got very close to the wall coming off of turn 4, but it's very important for Matt Taylor's championship hope that he does not let that front pack go, because he is the only driver, barring Tony Schowen, that is not a part of that front pack, but is still going for this championship.
And last time around, it was about a 10th quicker for your race leaders as compared to the grouping third on back. Not the quickest cars on the track itself right now, but because of the way this race is playing out, they are just building that advantage, building the buffer. And if you're Robert Malechka III, surely the topic on your mind here, Justin, is help your teammate win a championship, as it's too wide, too deep for 12th on back.
I think that has to be the focus if you're factory backed right now. They've been along those lines throughout the season, keep in mind, where if Malechka III can help Newsom, they'll have the assistance there. If Newsom can help Malechka III, you'll see that right on back. And they're playing this race perfectly to be able to be upwards of 2/10ths quicker, because the swapping for that second pack is not working. They are losing more and more time each time they swap, about up to 3/10ths slower compared to them. And it's right in the playbook of being a good teammate. We've seen that come into play with the private label team hype drivers in the IndyCar series. Factory backed is that equivalent for Speedway.
You can see, by the way, left-hand side of your screen, 2 drivers really ducking and diving, dicing their way through the field. That's Matt Taylor and Chris Fowler in the 8 and the 20. Barrett Rolfe has charged up 7, but he's very much hit a wall. Would not be shocked if in a couple of laps' time, Matt Taylor is knocking on the door of a top 5, maybe even squabbling for what is the final podium position. Remember, double points, so instead of 60 points for a race victory, it's 120, and with 23 cars in the field, minimum points that our championship contenders will score, 44 if they do get eliminated early doors in today's racing. But I'm knocking on wood as I say this, Andrew. We are about 18 laps into this one. No caution, and these drivers really racing respectfully, putting on a show, and not making me think we're due for a caution anytime soon.
Yeah, I think we've gotten through the danger area for this run for the most part, Arjuna. You're seeing that the cars are starting to spread out a little bit more. That aero push is really starting to come into effect, especially deeper on into some of these packs. And it's just getting harder and harder for the cars to follow closely. But one thing we do need to keep look out for is a number of drivers have gotten very close to that outside wall. So it is still a possibility that someone could get in into that wall through the aero push and bring out a caution. So we're not out of the woods yet, but I say it is at least looking good up until that first pit stop really comes around, I would think.
And we saw some calamity and chaos on the pit entry last time around. It's not as difficult as Kansas, I would say, Andrew, but when you're braking at these sort of speeds with the level of downforce that these cars have, you're basically hoping and you're praying that the car slows down in time. It's something that we saw in the real world this month of May, where plenty of drivers on the first pit cycle at the Indianapolis 500 found that, well, their brakes weren't working as they expected.
And the hardest thing about braking in a car like this is as you're slowing down, you're also losing the downforce, because the wings and the undercarriage really generates downforce by keeping the speeds that they're going, which is about 228, 29 miles an hour into these corners here, Arjuna. So when you start slowing down, as you're slowing down, you're also losing the downforce and losing grip. So it's very, very easy to lock a tire up and potentially slide into someone in front of you if you're coming in too close to a car in front of you. So definitely one of the hardest things to do in an oval race in a car like this is to get on the pit lane safely.
Matt Taylor does the over-under on fellow championship contender Joe Branch in the yellow and red as they enter in towards turn number 3. Taylor works himself up into 7th and does indeed clear himself of Joe Branch. Great move, and Matt Taylor showing that for a driver, Justin, that we've typically talked about coming on strong at the closing stages of the race, when he gets more comfortable with the car, when the track rubbers itself in, he's going aggressive right off the bat.
And I'm not surprised to see someone like Taylor right now following along with trying to be that aggressor, because he didn't qualify well at all. It puts you on the back foot with that. And keep in mind, Taylor has showed us several times this season that he's able to find lines that no one else has been able to figure out. Near contact with the wall with Craig Forsyth will set up this run, for example. Taylor just knows how to slice and dice his way through the pack when having to deal with aero wash, and knows how to pick the exact line. He'd probably be in a better situation championship-wise if it wasn't for how Kansas, of course, ended for him.
I think you could say that about a number of races for Matt Taylor across probably the last 4 races in this Speedway Series. Of course, does lead the championship in the Lionheart Retro Series. He'll have the chance to become a champion in the Lotus 79 in a couple of weeks' time, but Barrett Rolfe starting to slide backwards, drops behind Matt Taylor, who works himself up into the top 5 after starting down in 19th position. As it runs, right-hand side of your screen, Alexis Newsom is now, commentators' math never trusted, especially when it's on the fly, 39 points clear of the rest of the field. Taylor only 3 behind Barrett Rolfe. But ultimately, with how things are shaking out, Andrew, if Newsom controls this race, she's got one hand on the championship. She needs to stay out of trouble.
And Newsom's doing exactly that by being up at the front of this field, in front of all of this battling back and forth as we watch Taylor, and Rolfe is coming back on Matt Taylor here. Newsom is doing exactly what she needs to do at the front of this field. She's in a pack with her teammate, and we know that Malechka, as long as Newsom's in this race, Malechka has basically told us at the end of Kansas that he's really running to help Newsom win this championship. So she's exactly where she needs to be. And you talked about Taylor's aggression and him coming through the field, and I do think that while he's been spectacular at times, it's also worked to his detriment a few times, and Kansas was just one of those examples where he was going really, really close with Tony Schauen for a large portion of that first stint, and it finally bit them when they got together. So for Matt Taylor, while that aggression has produced speed, he's really got to find that fine line here in this race and make sure that he gets to the end with it as well.
And surely if you're Caleb Bensi, you do the same thing that we see with Malechka and Newsom out front. The goal is helping your teammate, the 2 team race first cars, at least for now. Barrett Rolfe has gotten past both of them. Alexander Van der Sande has cycled himself 1.2 seconds clear of these cars. Squabbling helping Alexander Van der Sande, but of course no draft, and despite that fact, he still went about 0.3 quicker, 0.2 quicker than at least Barrett Rolfe did the last time around. Alexander Van der Sande now matching the lap times for Malechka and Newsom at the front of your field. Some dicing back in the pack as well between George Anzaldo and Matt Houston. In front of them, Gary Godso and Mike Rigney duking it out themselves. Plenty of action up and down the field. Has sort of stretched on out, but in a race like this, in a competition like this, where it's basically pedal to the metal, Justin, and making sure that you just stay out of the wall, you're not going to see too many quiet moments on the track as De Groot gets himself up into 7th position.
Yeah, as some would point out, Arjuna, these drivers are fairly much so equalized out when it comes to their pace, when it comes to their tire wear, with the differences in some of the lines. It's all down to driver skill, I think a majority of at this point, as well as some of the fuel burn. But the interesting thing is, Barrett Rolfe is leading what is essentially the second pack. Notice that interval for the third place car? Alexander Van de Sande has ran away from the pack to the tune of a 10th per lap over the past few. He is pulling up and quickly up towards the top 2 on his own while they fight behind him.
And this, of course, is De Groot's charge for Factory Pack 2. Are trying to win the team's championship here in the Lionheart Speedway Series. Looking good for them, given that at least Malechka and Newsom are 1 and 2, while Joe Branch has been shuffled down to 11. Tony Schowen still down in 23rd, 23 seconds off your leader, and in danger if we stay green like this of being lapped before the end of stint number 2, I would maybe even think. Depends on how the fuel cycle will go. Good run for De Groot so far. Pit window should open next time around, and the question is who's coming in? Is Craig Forsyth the first car to blink? Ducks down from the banking. That's pretty conservative on pit entry there, I'd say, Andrew.
It was a conservative pit entry, but at this stage of the race, I think that was definitely a smart pit entry for Craig Forsyth. It looked like his tires were definitely starting to go away. He was really close to the wall a number of times and was starting to drop back a little bit through the field. So I like this strategy play from Craig Forsyth. Maybe try and get a little bit of an undercut, even though he won't be necessarily in the draft. He might actually come around Tony Schowen's car, and it might prove a good strategy gamble here.
Here comes race leader Robert Malechka the third down onto the lane, so clearly Alexis Newsom doing some fuel saving behind the number 91 machine. Matt Wagner, Christopher Kresge also working themselves down onto pit road, as it means out front Alexis Newsom now leads the way, surely down onto pit lane, if not this time around, potentially the next time, as Matt Taylor looks to the outside. Here comes Newsom though, no dramas this time around. Van der Sande stays out, Barrett Rolfe comes in with Newsom, but a number of cars staying out there. This is where the fuel saving that we were talking about, Justin, is coming into effect.
Especially the drivers able to lift a little bit in the heart of the pack if they don't want to take the run, and for some of those drivers, they've taken that in stride. Chris Fowler, meanwhile, saying, you know what? It's time to push. To try and pick up some spots. He wants to come in this time by. He's made 2 passes this lap before his in-lap.
I mean, make hay while the sun shines. Is Taylor going to duck down with him, or is going to follow Nick de Groot? It's a bit more aggressive from Matt Taylor, who does know that he needs to work his way through these cycles as aggressive as possible. Joe Branch, got a little bit squirrely there, but manages to hold on to that car. Pit road, exceptionally busy. You can see Newsom has rolled herself off of the lane. Where exactly is the 63 in relation to Robert Malechka III? They're side by side on exit, but Malechka III immediately gives this draft to Newsom. What do you expect from the teammates, Andrew?
I think that they'll just settle in and do more of the same. I think the interesting thing, though, here will be to see where Alexander Van de Sande comes out in relation to the 2 teammates, because he was definitely closing in a little bit as that run was going down, and he did manage to go that 1 lap further than Newsom, 2 laps further than Malechka. So if he can come out right in their draft, that might turn that leading twosome into a threesome, and I think it's going to be exactly that as they cycle through. Alexander Van de Sande, fantastic pit-in lap, and he's in between the 2 teammates right now.
So maybe the indication is the overcut is the way that you want to go, and it will definitely mean that in the final stint of the race, when you come down for what will effectively be a splash and dash for maybe 15 laps of fuel, give or take, Alexander Van de Sande might have the least fuel needed to be put into his car. Maybe we'll even see the risk of not taking tires. He is half a second behind Alexis Newsom, well and truly in drafting range. 2 seconds further back is Barrett Rolfe in the 33. Now finds himself all by himself. Craig Forsyth the further 1 behind. This is what we see when we have green flag cycles, Justin. The timidness versus the aggressiveness. It starts to break these cars up even more, but with fresh tires, I have no doubt it will close up once again.
I think so, especially with how this race is played out. But here's the intriguing thing. Look at who's joined the draft of the top 2. Van de Sande played this out to the point where he picked up half a second on his entry. He might have a strong shot here to make this into a 3-car tandem.
And since all 23 cars have made their way onto the lane, let's once more look at how the points are shaking out. Van der Sant, 102 points to his name, has worked himself up in to 5th position. But again, situation is if Alexis Newsom can control this race like she's doing, at least for the opening 38 laps or so, one hand on the championship in what has been a strong season, but an up and down season, and a season, Andrew, where midway through the year it looked as though it was all going wrong for the 63 car. Issues on pit entry, mistakes of her own that took out other contenders, but it's a strong championship contender that works through all of those struggles to still put up championship performance at the end of a season.
Yeah, the thing that's impressed me the most about Alexis Newsom's season is how she's really regrouped herself and really refocused and turned in some of her best performances in these last few races where the performances really started to count. Obviously, she didn't have the result that she wanted at Kansas, but she was leading coming into that white flag lap before that last lap incident put her down into the back half of the top 10. But even beyond that, she's really done a good job of regrouping, refocusing, and put in some very mature drives towards the end of the season, and that's the main reason that she is where she is in the championship and on this racetrack right now.
Here comes Nick de Groot to the inside of Matt Taylor. He'll sling it down the inside. Taylor now back down to 9th. Didn't have the best of pit cycles, but still in the top 10. Chris Fowler, the biggest mover on the day so far. He's plus 17 as he now looks to get on past Caleb Bensi in the number 29. Looks like move done there. And unfortunately, a driver that was looking pretty comfortable in the pack itself has now dropped about 3 seconds back from Matt Houston. George Anzaldo sits himself in 22nd position, but a man that does so much for Lionheart, Justin. He's our sim experience driver profile, the man behind Lionheart. Only 14 starts this season because he's been super busy making sure that the league is in tip-top condition. He's always a man that goes out there and puts everything on the line.
And remember, he's been in contention for a couple wins this season where he's got the speed when it comes to this car. But it's just been about finishing the execution. But you have to give him credit for all the hard work he does to make sure everything executes perfectly when it comes to the Lionheart side of things, when it comes to the league structure. It's not looking too great so far race-wise, but for him when it comes to his hard work and commitment to running this series, there's a reason he's one of the most respected members of the open wheel community at this point. He's running 22nd.
And what are your memories of George, Andrew? Because of course you're the Lionheart setup guru, do so much behind the scenes to build these cars that let us have some spectacular racing. There's no better man in this commentary booth than you to talk about his commitment to Lionheart.
It's really unparalleled, Arjuna. In all of iRacing, I don't think that there's a league founder that has done so much for the series that they've founded and really nursed to what it is today and the great series that we have. He puts in so much time, day after day. I don't know how he does it, honestly. Even in the off-season, when all the drivers are sort of recharging their batteries, George is go every day looking for sponsorship, looking for things that he can do to help the league, whether it's finding sponsors that will give awesome prizes like we have this year, whether it's going out and interviewing with broadcast partners like RaceSpot and how we've ended up in this fantastic home that we have here. That's all George is doing, and he puts in so much time and effort, and this is really the whole series. All three of them are George's baby, and it really shows with the quality product that we put on week after week in the Lionheart series.
Alexander Van der Sant has slipped a little bit backwards, now 1.4 off the tail of your race leader. Still 2 and a bit seconds, 2.2 clear of the Ascari Autosport number 33, and I saw a message from Manuel Tolentino, the spotter for Barrett Rolfe, saying that it's time to negotiate a team transfer for Mr. Van der Sant. Poor Barrett running solo. I regret to inform you that Mr. Van der Sant has already been clutched and claimed by Adrenaline Powerslide for all future Lionheart series and indeed open setup competitions as well. He'll be joining up with the likes of Adam Blocker, Andrew Kinsella, and Joe Branch, Tony Showen in a week's time or so, when there is a new iRacing build that promises to have plenty of exciting things on the cards. Already announced the updated scan for Watkins Glen in upstate New York. We're also looking at the release of Knock Hill. Great to have a Scottish track coming to iRacing. Maybe we can convince Mr. Anzaldo to throw that onto the schedule, if not for an official sanctioned event, maybe an all-star event or something like that. Also, plenty of exciting surprises that I'm sure are yet to be revealed from the wonderful iRacing staff. Of course, we will likely visit Watkins Glen in our 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. Meanwhile, 6th on back have been squabbling and fallen back from Craig Forsyth in front. This is Fowler, Benzie, Taylor, DeGroot, all mixed up with one another. Joe Branch not far behind as well. And you think at this point, Justin, approaching a third of the race distance, for Matt Taylor, surely he'd be on the blower to Caleb Benzie saying, come on, let me through, I've got a championship to fight for.
Yeah, absolutely at this point. It has been that type of a year for some of the drivers, I will say. But you have to give credit to a lot of these competitors when it comes to the improvement. Caleb has been one of those drivers who has absolutely shown a lot of great improvement. And he works with a lot of these drivers who are in this line, mind you, whether it's Fowler, whether it's Taylor. So I think at this point, they may be synced up to try and pull in ahead. I wouldn't be surprised to see someone like the 29, Caleb Benzie, battling for wins in more frequency next season, if not in several other Lionheart sanctioned series, with how the momentum's been faring his direction.
Schedules for 2022 have been provisionally posted. Some interesting things coming up on the agenda. Visits to the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway for the DW12 for the IR18. Visit to the Land of the Rising Sun and Suzuka for the Indy cars as well. Plenty of intriguing things to keep your eye out on RaceSpotTV, even as the 2021 season comes to a close. 3 championship finales, 2 this week. We'll head back to Auto Club this coming Sunday for the IndyCar Showdown. Adam Blocker has already claimed a 4th consecutive title. Question is, will he be around with his real-world commitments in the NTT IndyCar Series paddock to try and claim the Triple Crown? Would be the first driver to have done so, all 3 races in a calendar year. And then a couple of weeks from now, Mark Cohn will try and do the same after winning in dramatic fashion both at Pocono and at Indianapolis in the Lotus 79. Another championship showdown there that promises to be extremely intriguing. Aaron Morgan has closed the gap to his teammate Matt Taylor. It's all to play for here at Auto Club. Those Lotus 79s really do know how to put on a show on the ovals, even if they weren't necessarily designed to go racing just in left-hand turns. We've been watching Jeff Young, Charles Teed, and Trevor Malone duking it out, but getting more and more intriguing between the teammates. Matt Taylor now split between Chris Fowler and Caleb Benzie. Nick DeGroot just watching on as a good view of all the action here, Andrew.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm kind of struggling to see what these race first cars are doing here, Arjuna. They're really squabbling and not really cooperating with each other, and it's allowing the likes of Fowler, Forsyth, and Rolf to really, Forsyth, Rolf, and Van de Sant to really get a little bit of a gap going here. So if I were in the race first Discord right now, I'd be on the phone, especially if I was Matt Taylor, saying, guys, we need to organize. We need to make sure that we're working together and not working against each other, because they just don't seem to be working very well together right now.
They are now 1.5 seconds back from Craig Forsyth. He's in turn a further 1.5 back from Barrett Rolfe, who hasn't closed on Alexander Van der Sant. Van der Sant has done a good job of keeping that gap fairly constant and consistent to the leading 2 factory-backed machines, and in fact last time around was what, 800ths quicker than the 91 and the 63, but still outside of drafting range. Still a lot of work to do, as lap 55, I was going to say is in the books, but it was lap 54 that was in the books. We are entering 10 laps to go until the next cycle of green flag pit stops. And if you're in a group like this, start to get a little bit worried. This has been a great season, Justin, because this car, the DW12, put on much closer oval racing than the current incarnation of IndyCar, the IR18, which tends to be a little bit more single file and spread out across of whatever type of oval and whatever type of package that you're running. But we've seen plenty of races where we've had these sort of long green flag runs that have defined the Speedway series.
Yeah, and in some cases, fully green races, where we've seen Van de Sande in particular take advantage back at Kentucky by being the fuel master and saving more gas than anyone else in the entire field, and ran out coming to the checkered flag in an emotional victory at that time. This is, in turn, just emphasizing so much of the importance of making sure you practice everything, not just short run pace or one simple run, but try to figure out what's going to be the call. Speaking of calls, some drivers may have to make some, as there's been some trouble down at the pit entry.
It's Charles Teed in the 5 that's straight down onto pit road. What has happened here? Coming out of turn number 4. Might have been something that happened with Paul Jenkins with AJ Musselman. We'll catch the tail end of the incident now.
Oh my word!
And Charles Teed gets launched into the air by the high speed of AJ Musselman. It's just door-to-door contact between Paul Jenkins and Charles Teed, and well, Musselman, no time to react. He just gets mixed up in that by no fault of his own. Couple more looks at this one. Take a look at it, Andrew.
Yeah, so Trevor Malone pulls down in front of Paul Jenkins there and basically puts a face full of aero wash into the car of Paul Jenkins. Charles Teed pinching Jenkins down a little bit, and Jenkins just had no ability to control the car and keep it on the bottom there. So they make contact, and then big impact between Charles Teed and AJ Musselman. Who is that? It does look like that white car there just barely survived through that, and man, that was a big impact between Musselman and Teed. Very surprised we didn't get a caution, but I think it was because it was on the grass and not on the track that he went flying like that. But man, that was a big impact.
I believe it was Mike Rigney in the 00 that got somewhat mixed up in it, but did manage, I think, to at least keep his car pretty clean. Doesn't look as though on the lap times that he slowed down. It was a 32.3 last time for him. Race leader, a 32.281, so very much still in contention if he can close the gap. So we started with 23. We've now got 2 on pit lane and in the garage. Paul Jenkins did have a slightly lengthy stop, 23.4 seconds stationary, but he's still out there, albeit 2 laps down. Not been a great year for the 35 car, and I'm sure his family isn't going to be too thrilled to see that one either, Justin.
Especially since some of his family is watching along tonight and was cheering Paul Jenkins on, wanting to see him run well. Things not working his direction. And it gets worse. Paul Jenkins just got a drive-through for avoidable contact, so he'll lose even more time on the racetrack. So everything is not going the way of Paul Jenkins.
He's already 2 laps down, though, so I don't think it's going to do his race any worse. Now the question is, does Charles Teed, does AJ Musselman have the ability to roll that car back out onto track? I would be shocked, especially given the velocity of the impact that we saw there. You don't typically see Indy cars going that high up into the air, Andrew.
No, and AJ Musselman has in fact exited the session, so his day is done along with Charles Teed. So both of the cars in that massive impact there are now out of this race, and that does have a little bit of championship implications, Arjuna, because you mentioned that it was 44 points. I believe it is now 48 points is the minimum that Alexis Newsom can get, or any driver can get at this point. So that does change the calculations just a little bit for these drivers and makes it just that little bit more attainable for Newsom here.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to take some drama. I think that's what we should say in terms of Alexis Newsom not taking the championship. Pit stops are underway, which I'm a little bit intrigued by, but I guess these drivers somewhat counting backwards. Chris Fowler, Craig Forsyth, George Anzaldo all onto the lead this time around. It looks like we may have a driver that is slowing themselves down significantly. What's happened to Alexander Van de Sande here, Justin?
As we had all that going on with the craziness out of turn 4, guess who ended up destroying his side pod? the 97 of Van de Sant. It would be exit turn 2, lap 61, where when these tires were out, I noticed this so far throughout the trends of the day. Around lap 20, you start getting really tight on corner exit. More so turn 4. Watch on the exit of turn 2. He's moving up way too quick, doesn't realize until right there, boom. And guess what? That's 0.8 of a second per lap in side pod damage.
Now, Andrew, can he get that repaired? Because we are into the pit stop window here.
It's very doubtful that he'll be able to get it repaired. It'll be the flip and the side pod, and this is on the old damage model that does not have as much repairability as the new damage model car like the IR18. So this is a huge blow to Alexander Van de Sant's chances, and I'd say this, in fact, would probably be his shot at winning the championship gone for Alexander Van de Sant.
And I'd argue maybe even the chance of a top 3 in the championship has now fallen by the wayside for the number 97, who will come down onto pit road. Robert Malechka III rolls himself off a pit lane. Barrett Rolfe not far behind as Alexis Newsom is followed in by Caleb Bensi as well as the 97 machine. Only a couple of cars yet to come down onto the lane. They include Nick de Groot, Matt Taylor, Joe Branch, Deschamps, Trevor Malone, Mike Rigney, as well as winner to kick things off at Twin Ring Motegi, Dean Moll. Now we wait and see for Alexis Newsom, who is on pit box right now. Where is she going to feed out in comparison to Malechka here, Justin?
It looks like, for the most part, they've been trying to stay within sync to one another each and every strategy window. So I wouldn't be surprised if they come out close. Keep in mind, funnily enough, Nick de Groot is the first car behind Malechka III right now, who is currently the leader. Newsom, indeed, does come out where I thought, right in the mix to be able to keep on working with Malechka III, albeit with a bit of a bigger buffer.
So now if a caution came out, it would be catastrophic, potentially, for the likes of Barrett Rolfe on down, because they are trapped one lap down as Matt Taylor is into his boxes. I think Dean Moll's had some sort of drama of his own entering into pit lane. We'll go ahead and spin up the RaceSpotTV replay machine to take a look at what happened here. It's tricky. We talked about the level of downforce that you have in these cars, and just watch here as the 23 slides through his box. He's going to have to back that one up. That will cost him a couple of seconds in the lane and will surely drop him down the timing screen and down in terms of track position as well. Here comes Nick de Groot, last car into the lane on lap 69 of this race. Alexis Newsom back to the lead, synced up with Robert Malechka III, Andrew.
Yeah, these two factory-backed cars are really hooked up, and they're doing exactly what they need to do. I want to draw your attention to another championship contender, though, Arjuna, and that is Tony Schowen. He had been running around in that sort of 22nd, 20th position, and he was about 23 seconds back of the leader, 24-25. During that last pit cycle, he had some drama coming on to pit lane, and he is now fallen one lap behind the race lead. So even a caution at this point, it's going to be tough for Tony Schowen to get back into the fight and to really put any sort of battle here towards this championship.
Don't know what our timing screen was thinking. Tony Schowen is not 23rd because, of course, we've had a couple of retirees so far in this race, but he is still running out on track. But a lap down, 17th position, has it all to do. Barrett Rolfe not far behind him, is still about 1 second clear of Tony Schowen. Not Tony Schowen, excuse me, Craig Forsyth in the number 72 just down the road from him, but it's a podium position in the hands of Barrett Rolfe, but very much still needs a close 4.6 seconds to sniff victory. Would be his second of the season. Second Triple Crown win to his name, as Alexander Van de Sant does appear to have rectified the majority of the damage on his car. Last time around was a 31.7 is all. Nick de Groot is going to have to come back down onto pit lane here, Justin.
He already just came off the pit lane, in fact, or to correct you there, he just spent more than 40 seconds in the pit lane because of speeding. That's what happens when you go 66 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour limit zone. So Nick de Groot is essentially out of the conversation for a top 10 finish here. Newsom and Malechka III now will be the main points gatherers when it comes to factory backed in turn as a result of that miscue and mistake.
Looks like sorry, go ahead.
And you mentioned Arjuna, that Alexander Van de Sant did receive a lot of work on pit lane there, but it did cost him 48 seconds, so he is also 1 lap down. Also, Matt Wagner, 48 second stop, so that is, as well for him, both of those cars 1 lap down now and behind even Tony Schowen. So those are your 18th and 19th place runners, but crucially for Van de Sant, 1 lap behind the leader and basically out of this race.
And not only that, too, Trevor Malone had the same issue, too, because for Trevor Malone, I heard over the radio, it was a very, very late call, screaming pit, 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 and basically stomped on the brakes to the point where he nearly spun it out. So a lot of drivers caught speeding this time.
Drama on pit lane, kind of what you'd expect at a track like this, but under the night lights here at the Auto Club Speedway, still about half the race left to go. And it is sad, you mentioned this earlier, Andrew, that this track is basically going to become a short track for the rest of its history, because construction work has begun to convert this 2-mile facility down into a short track for the stock cars, and it's going to be a lot like Bristol, but I think it's going to lose a lot of that character, a lot of that history that has been built at this track. So many close finishes, both in stock cars and in these open wheel machines.
Yeah, it's one of those tracks where it always seems to produce some really good action, whether it's been in an Indy car or been in a stock car. It's really had some of those side-by-side battles. One of the things about it is it's so wide that you can take so many different lines through the corners, and it's gotten to the point where it had a lot of character as well in the racing surface. So it's really, really, really nice facility, and I do hope that they do a good job with the short track. I think it'll be an exciting place for NASCAR. I don't think that it's a place that IndyCar will ever be able to go to again, which is a shame, but I hope that the fans sort of come back and embrace the facility, because obviously one of the problems with Auto Club is that the attendance had been declining, and this change to a short track is looking to remedy that just a little bit. So hopefully that the fans in Southern California really embrace Auto Club Speedway in its new form, even if this magnificent facility that we have in front of us is going to be changed.
Hey, I mean, we can try it here on iRacing. We can see how it goes. You'll notice Matt Taylor about to get lapped by your race leaders, and Taylor is now effectively out of the championship fight because Justin, another car, falling afoul of the walls here at Auto Club.
Yeah, right before the pit stop window, keep an eye on turn 4 exit, lap 65 this would be. Just a couple laps before he peeled on in, where I mentioned some of the trends going towards drivers getting a lot of aero wash, and if they charge too hard out of the corner, they'll slide up into the wall, to the point where a lot of them have to lift hard out of the gas. Taylor right here pushes hard to the bottom, tries to keep it pinned essentially to the throttle, too much, bounces off the wall, side pod damage, try to fix it for an additional 7-8 seconds in the pit lane plus. No dice, he's now also a lap down, 32.7 seconds back of the leader.
And I'm not saying that the 29 of Caleb Bensley takes any of the blame itself, but it goes back to what I was saying earlier, Andrew. Play the team game, make sure Matt Taylor is running as far up the field as possible. Maybe he was saving some fuel, but now we'll never know how that was going to work out because he was in the dirty air and just washed up the track.
Yeah, and I think that we were talking much earlier in this broadcast about how aggressive Matt Taylor can be. And one of the things that he's done in races past is he's really been aggressive on his pit ends. In fact, I think earlier in this race even we saw him make up a couple of positions just on his in-lap. So I think probably he was trying to do that again and really take it to the cars of Nick DeGroot and Caleb Bensley in front of him. And that's probably why he kept his foot into it, and it just didn't pay off. So I think that aggression, he stepped over that line with that aggression, and it bit him, and it's going to cost him the championship here today, Arjuna. There's no two ways about it.
Let's take a look at the battle between Matt Wagner and Nick DeGroot. Two cars who are 1 lap down. While we also talk about the championship fight itself. Newsom still clear. Rolf in second, Malechka in third, Taylor, Van de Sant, Schowen, all dropping down the order. Not the best of days for any of them. For Joe Branch, if he can work himself up the field from where he is currently in 7th position, has the potential to cycle in front of Matt Taylor, but we'll have to wait and see exactly how this is all going to play out. Prize money, prizes all on the line for the top finishers in this championship, so plenty to play for up and down through this field. Meanwhile, it's a big gap between first, second, and third now. It is almost 6 full seconds between Robert Malechka III and Barrett Rolfe here, Justin.
This is the point where Manuel Tolentino has just forwarded saying, can we get a virtual safety car? We're on series, unfortunately, if you want that one, but for Rolfe, he's losing 1/10 of a second per lap to the leaders. No one to work with, on his very lonesome. Just essentially Manuel in his ear saying, we need something to happen to have a chance here. And that seems to be the play and be the case, because Malechka and Newsom, right from the drop of the green flag, knew exactly how to execute a strategy, and they haven't backed off that strategy this entire time. They have dominated this race as a group. 44 for Malechka to third lead laps, 33 for Newsom. They've both been the dominant cars from the drop of the green flag, as you see now some of the traffic.
And I think that traffic, Justin, is really going to be key for Barrett Rolfe. As you mentioned that he's on his own, but he's really not. He's on his own on his lap, but he's mixing it up with some traffic. So what he's got to be focusing on now is finding a way to make these lap cars work for him, and try and maybe use some of this draft that he's getting from the likes of Taylor and Showen to really get back up towards those leading duo, because we are just over halfway here. So he does still have time to get back up there, but he's really got to be smart about it.
Yeah, I think Tony's the most realistic of the two, because Taylor's got the damage, of course. So at this point, Rolfe, who is closing in, mind you, on Tony Showen, can use that swap grab, absolutely. That may be the one major saving grace to pick up some time and make sure he doesn't fall back to Forsyth and Fowler.
As we ride on board with the butt kicker onboard camera on the 33 car, doesn't need a virtual safety car. He needs the full safety car, because a virtual safety car just equalizes things. It's not going to help out the case of the 33 car. Maybe,
I think he wanted it just for first and second.
Oh, I see. That's never going to work. But what he really needs to do is get in the ears of race control and slip them a bit of cheddar. Get a safety car out there on track.
No.
Debris.
I mean, you say that. Funnily enough, with the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series, Ashton Crowder ended up having a pedal issue in that race. Right out of the fuel window by 5 laps. He tried to, literally in his own room, throw stuff around to try and hope it somehow magically became onto the racetrack to bring out the debris caution. It didn't work.
Wow. That's a story that I never thought I'd be hearing. Do you remember which track that was at?
Right here.
Oh, oof, wow. Well,
a week or two ago, in fact.
So Barrett Rolfe's got to get working.
Yes.
Oh wow. Things that you'd never think you'd see in sim racing for $300, please. That's not something I'm going to forget for a while, that's for sure.
I mean, it didn't particularly work for Robbie Gordon, and it didn't work for Ashton Crowder either, so...
well, I guess if you had a teammate, you could hypothetically ask them to loop it by themselves. But, of course, Barrett Rolfe's not in that situation. We're not implying that anyone would do that either. By the way, in terms of lead lap cars, there's only a couple of groupings that are close on track. Craig Forsyth, Chris Fowler separated by about half a second. Meanwhile, Jeff Young and Gary Godso, 9/10 of a second. Manuel Tolentino saying he doesn't discriminate on cheese for bribes. Ooh. Manchego, Parmesan, Mexican blend, all available. Now you're making me hungry.
I mean, at the very least, Chris Fowler's hungry for this position. And so he's been slowly trying to claw his way forward. By the way, Fowler's the biggest move of the race at this rate. 18 spots gained.
Yeah, being good for him after starting down outside of the top 20. I feel like we can say this about basically every driver in this series, but at some point or another. Chris Fowler has had, well, if you couldn't have any luck, he still managed to have less luck than that. Some of the things he's been mixed up in, I remember in the Retro Series, for example, some pretty crazy incidents for the number 20, who is coming down onto pit lane on lap 91. He's early, but I have a feeling what he's doing here, Andrew, is just boxing a bit early. He's going to make sure effectively that the final stop of the race is a bit longer than the other cars might be doing, but he's saving the tires and maybe he'll go a bit quicker as a result.
One other thing that you can do in a scenario like this, Arjun, is you can actually take a little bit less fuel and split these stints up a little bit more evenly. And what that allows you to do is it just allows you to circulate faster on your average lap time throughout the course of a longer time. So I've actually used this strategy in the DW12 a couple of times, if that is in fact what he's doing. So it can actually really work out well if he is doing that. So it'll be interesting to see just how long that final pit stop does turn out to be for Chris Fowler.
And by this strategy, I'd guess he's coming down on lap 123, 124, potentially. Also down onto the lane, by the way, is George Anzaldo, Matt Wagner, Mike Rigney, and Paul Jenkins, all cars that we've seen on this sort of a strategy. And of course, if anyone's going to be talking about strategy, it is the defending race winner, not just in the DW12, but the IR18. And Andrew, you're looking to wrap up your Lionheart IndyCar Series 2021 campaign with some more victories, potentially here at Auto Club. How much are you looking forward to what is going to be a 500-mile race in the IR18 in about 5 days' time?
Yeah, I've always liked Auto Club as a track to drive. It's always been one of my favorite tracks. I've had a lot of success here. It's one of those tracks where you can win it a number of ways. You can win it on speed, you can win it on strategy, you can win it through luck, you can win it through cooperation, which is what Adam and I did last year. We did actually something very similar to what Robert Malechka and Alexis Newsom are doing. Is we swapped draft for a large portion of the race, built up about a 10-second lap, and then with about 20 laps to go, it was sort of gloves off, and we were battling to the end for a photo finish there in the IR18, and then a similar actually photo finish with Chris Stouffer when the DW12 last went here, and I managed to just nose in front of Chris Stouffer on the last lap. So it's been a lot. It's one of those tracks where you can win it a lot of ways, you can drive it a lot of ways, and it's just a really fun track to drive around. So definitely looking forward to Sunday.
And that will be this Sunday. I forget the time off the top of my head, but I believe it's 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Pacific.
Yes, exactly. And I think a lot of drivers are going to be very hungry when it comes to these battles for positions, and not just talking about food at this point. A lot of drivers are going to be hungry when it comes to wanting to finish out right, knowing championships locked up, team titles locked up in the IndyCar side, yes. But there's still a lot to race for when it comes to the Triple Crown, ending of the season, as well as the potential of it could be anyone's race if you play your cards right, essentially. Just like how tonight, Factory Backed has played their cards perfectly to the point where the other cards have fallen off the table and are somewhere lost next to a vent, I believe.
I like the analogies that we're coming up with today. That will be the Sim Experience race for the championship, but championship is already decided. Adam Blocker is likely to be testing with one of the NTT IndyCar Series teams that is making a return in 2022. So the question is yet to be answered as to whether he'll be out in action, as Alexander Van der Sant, Tony Schowen, and Barrett Rolfe all working themselves down onto pit lane this time around. If Adam Blocker is not around, as mentioned before, means that he will not be in contention for becoming the first driver to win all 3 Triple Crown races in the Lionheart Racing Series. That honor might go to Mark Cohn in the Lionheart Retro Series on December 16th, which is still a long way away. We'll get that answer very shortly. Here comes race leader Robert Malechka III down onto pit road, lap 98. And if you do the math from here, 32 lap stint, 33 lap stint, he is going to have a slightly shorter stop, but it'll be very interesting to see exactly how he cycles that in comparison to the likes of Chris Fowler, to the likes of Craig Forsyth. I still think there's more drama to come, Andrew. I am not discounting the possibility that we get a caution to set up a absolute brawl to the end of this race.
All it takes is one mistake from one of these drivers, Arjuna, and it could end up in a caution, and that caution could reset the entire field, change the complexion of this race and of the championship. As you mentioned, all it takes is one moment for the likes of Barrett Rolfe to really get into the fight, and if we can get Barrett Rolfe up and battling with Newsom and Malechka, that alone could be all it takes to make this ending really, really spicy. So even though we're in sort of a lull right now, I'd say don't go anywhere because this race has the potential to really heat up as this race winds down and the strategy plays out.
About to come to 50 laps to go as this penultimate cycle of pit stops in this 2021 Lionheart Speedway Series campaign is coming to a close. There comes Malechka III, this time in front of Alexis Newsom. They are still 6 seconds clear of Barrett Rolfe, so well and truly in control of this race. As I'm getting word, looking like in the Retro Series, Mark Cohn won't be racing, so the Watchman, no chance of making series history there. It's uncommon, Justin, to see in races as long as these Triple Crowns, in races as chaotic and unpredictable as these Triple Crowns, to see the same driver take victory 2 times. To see it happen 3 times is almost unbelievable, but we're not going to even find out this time in 2021.
And keep in mind, when it comes to those Triple Crown victories for Mark Cohn, they've come in unbelievable fashion and exciting fashion. He knows how to be a driver who flares for the dramatic, but you also have to remember, Arjuna, he's also taken a bigger role when it comes to some of the race control side of things for some of these events along with Tom McGrath for some of them. So I understand why that may be coming into play there, especially with the hard work it takes to make sure the races go off without a hitch when it comes to Lionheart competition. But he will be back for 2022.
And it's shaping up to be an exciting 2022, but still plenty of action to close out 2021 across of Lionheart competition, and specifically here tonight in the Lionheart Speedway Series. You're watching RaceSpotTV and coverage of the Championship Showdown, the Thumbs Up Countdown 300, presented by -273. Don't go anywhere. Final stages of the championship coming up right after this.
Wreck avoidances.
Stay low. Keep high, stay low.
Daring passes.
Oh, you're gonna get it. Let's go.
Silly jumps.
Oh my god, a drive-through.
The thrill of victory.
They're against the wall. Good one, Mark. Stay low.
And the occasional mishap.
My sim crashed.
This is the DMLC Racing Channel.
Welcome back to RaceSpotTV and the run to the checkered flag in the 2021 Lionheart Speedway Series campaign. We are here in the Golden State, the Auto Club Speedway, for a double point showdown, the Thumbs Up Countdown 300, presented by -273. My name is Arjuna Kenkipati, alongside in a special 3-man commentary booth for tonight's season finale is Justin Prince and Andrew Kinsella. Reminder, you can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to RaceSpotTV/Indy, powered by our partners at ATVO. Follow along with your favorite team and drivers across of tonight's entertainment. Justin, what a season it's been, but at least tonight, it's been all about factory back. They've not enjoyed dominance over the course of 2021, but they're dominant here today, 7 seconds clear of the rest of the field.
Well, it's not surprising to see the domination station they've been able to pull off tonight when it comes to playing things out to perfection in terms of the swap draft to break away from the pack early, and then setting the tempo from there to the point where they're still pulling away from the rest of the pack, several times over by at least half a tenth per lap. There's a reason these two drivers up at the front have combined for 10 of the victories entering tonight. It's been difficult to find your way up towards them all season.
And if anything, Barrett Rolfe has been closed on by Chris Fowler, Craig Forsyth, Caleb Bency. We have 19 cars, still running out of the 23 that took to the green flag. 11 of them are on the lead lap, and Christopher Kresge in danger of going one lap down in a race that has gone green from the start of this race to lap 111. 40 laps to go. One final pit stop for these drivers to make sure they execute, make no mistakes to wrap out the season. And as things run, Andrew, well, one hand on the championship for Alexis Newsom. She is clear of Barrett Rolfe by give or take about 25 points. The question really is, what's going to happen for fourth on back, where it is pretty close between drivers that have had issues here today? Matt Taylor, Joe Branch, Tony Schowen, and Alexander Van der Sande.
One hand on the championship indeed, and it's been an incredible drive from Alexis Newsom. So impressive. She's done exactly what she's needed to do. But as you mentioned, some of those drivers who were in contention at the beginning of this race, they've made some mistakes and taken themselves out of contention, and now it's turning into a heated scrap for that 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th position. Van der Sande, who we saw on the live timing, was as high as 3rd in live points at one point. He's all the way down in 7th and circulating around with a stricken car. You see him part of this pack along with Tony Schowen, who is also one lap down. This was not the race that Van der Sande, Taylor, or Tony Schowen needed. And now it's all about salvaging whatever they can from this race to get it to finish as high up in the championship as they can, because don't forget, there is cash prizes available, not just for the winner of this championship, but for several places below it as well. So it will make a difference where these drivers finish in this championship. So every point for many of these drivers still counts.
Tony Schowen, George Anzaldo swapping amongst the two of them. These are the cars that are first on one lap down. Tony Schowen, after starting down on pit road, has worked his way up to 12th, but really not the way that the Iowa native would have wanted the season to come to a close, as Anzaldo powers around the outside. Van der Sande is one lap down, so not fighting with these cars, but just using them to build up the speed, with significant damage to his right side pod early in the race. Tony Schowen now does get the job done with Caleb Bency, next car up the road, running up in 6th position. Chris Fowler will be, by the way, the first car to come down onto pit lane. He's on lap 24 of his stint. Hypothetically, could come down onto the lane in about 4 laps time or so and would be able to make it to the end. We'll wait and see when the 20 car, biggest mover on the day so far, plus 19 from where he qualified. And of course, Fowler did have an end-of-line penalty to serve, so has driven his way up through the field in dramatic fashion. Finally, some luck going the way of Chris Fowler and that number 20 car. Justin, I think the thing that we really have to highlight here is if Robert Malechka III had joined the series for race 1 instead of... Oh, I just heard a crash in the background.
I'm not sure which car that would have been. Right now, it looks like everyone's keeping themselves forward, but we'll have to see if there's any problems. There's Christopher Kresge in particular, who the leaders just passed on by. Wonder if something just happened when he tried to let by the leaders.
I definitely heard a crunch. That is for sure. Let's ride on board with the number 16 machine and take a look from the RIL Team Speed car coming across the start-finish line. You can hear him lifting off what's going to happen here, because he did slow, but that looks okay. Doesn't look like anything happened there.
Watch for the exit.
Nope.
It looked like a simple exit.
Yeah, no, it looks okay.
Are you trying to bring out
No.
the...
I promise, Justin, I heard a crunch. I heard a crunch.
Now you've got me paranoid in terms of that, because I don't see any other additional cars, by the way, who have side pod damage, so...
Interesting.
Are you okay?
Well, no, I'm never okay. Let's just be real. But I'm 100% convinced I heard the crunch. The unmistakable sound of cars screaming in agony from something. It sounded minor, yes, but now I'm not sure. Yeah,
I just want to go on the record. I did not hear a crunch.
Do you think
the stream heard it as well? So I hear Mark Cohn saying that he heard it as well.
I think there... Do you think it was a bottoming out, possibly, Andrew?
It could have been. Generally speaking, these cars shouldn't be bottoming out that bad. They're not that close to the ground, but it could have been, I suppose.
It didn't sound like that, because I know what that sounds like as well. It was not that. It was not as minor as that. Whatever the case may be, I think Manuel Tolentino is thinking that this is his opportunity to get the yellow out there, as we'll come to 30 to go next time around. Chris Fowler still not in the lane just yet. Doesn't look as though any of the cars have really slowed down significantly. George and Zelda, you've seen it as well.
And Soto! And there's the crunch you were waiting for. Not what George wanted, of course. He missed the pit lane and then some, right into the pit wall.
Let's watch this with the onboard view from the number 6 car, who's just, he's hard onto the grass, into the attenuator, and up and over he goes. That's an interesting way to close out the 2021 year for the series organizer.
That was about 50 miles an hour too quick coming into pit lane. George was never making that, unfortunately. And the worst thing is that he got into the grass, and that basically made him a passenger. He couldn't change really directions or brake, and he just hits that attenuator. But yeah, he was never making that pit lane, and he probably should have just tried to go around there. And fortunately, we did not get a caution, and so the race continues on. But definitely an unfortunate end to George Anzaldo's season here.
Well, not the first time we've seen a car flipping like that. This time, though, it was a single car incident. Because it was down on the pit lane entry to the inside of the track, the updated iRacing race control that was about halfway through this season updated to be a little bit more lenient with the aggressiveness of bringing out the cautions did mean that in both the incidents we've seen to date, cautions were not necessary, as the pit stops are underway, by the way. Chris Fowler has come down, as has Caleb Bensie this last time around. Craig Forsyth, Matt Houston, Matt Wagner, Paul Jenkins, all cars having made their final pit stops of the year, as Alexis Newsom is now 4 tenths behind Robert Malechka III. I don't think we'll see any team orders here, because at the end of the day, if Malechka III wins, Newsom still has the championship. How aggressive do you think Newsom's going to be to try and win this race, Justin?
That's a good question, because I think at this point, knowing that essentially you're in the great position of clinching a championship with where you run, regardless of first or second, clinching a team title, likely with them running first and second, you've got that flexibility where if you feel safe enough to do so, you can fight for the battle for the win. But the main thing is going to be, if you're Newsom, getting close enough to get a run, because compare this to before, the separation is 4 tenths. If anything, Newsom looks like she's struggling a little bit with the aero wash to try and close the deficit back up to Malechka III.
Jess Young onto pit lane in the number 18 machine. Still waiting then for Malechka, Newsom, Rolf, Branch, Godso, Schowen in the top 6. It looks like Gary Godso will be coming in 1 lap down. So only 4 cars are left on the lead lap. Of course, things will change as the final 4 cars on the leading lap do come down onto the pit lane. It'll be a somewhat shorter stop. We'll wait and see how much shorter, but the likelihood is it's not going to be too short, because The pit stop here, Andrew, is going to be limited by the amount of time it takes to change the tires, not the amount of fuel that goes into these cars.
Yeah, there is a little bit of an advantage, basically down to, you can go all the way down to about 10 gallons. It does save you just a little bit of time, 10 or 12 gallons, but it's not a huge difference. It's probably about a second and a half that you can save total here. As Joe Branch is on pit lane, so we are now down to just 3 cars on the lead lap, and it is the top 3 on the pits, on the track, but we also have a battle going on here between Bensi, Forsyth, and I believe that's Matt Taylor, who's a lap down.
Matt Taylor would have liked to be in front of these cars earlier, before he knocked himself into the wall, but already you can see he's dropped off the back. That's the extent of the damage that Matt Taylor has been dealing with since that wall tap on lap 65. Feels like an age ago in a race that has really flown on by. We're coming into the last 10 minutes of the campaign as Bensi finding side by side with Forsyth, who will look to the inside. This is a 6th position out on track. Will they cycle? In front, though, of the likes of Tony Showen, who is yet to come down onto pit road. That is a certainty, given that he's only about 3 seconds up the road, as Newsom, still on track, now leads the race as Robert Malechka III onto the pit lane. No mistakes this time around. Barrett Rolfe also clean into the lane here, Justin.
For the most part, drivers have been keeping it fairly conservative to make sure they make this pit lane, and you do not want to make a mistake on the money stop. No major mistakes for anyone this time. Van de Sande also coming on in. There's the track map you see with some of those separations, but it has been like clockwork, essentially, between Newsom and Malechka III. Normally, we've seen Newsom come the following lap after Malechka III. Newsom this time has said, you know what, I'm going to go longer.
But how much longer? We've seen the overcut has worked on occasion. We've seen the undercut has worked on occasion. Tony Showen onto pit lane as well this time around. So he'll drop likely to about 10th position potentially, as Forsyth and Bensi still duking it out side by side. And, ooh, interestingly, in the battle for the final podium position, Chris Fowler has emerged in front of Barrett Rolfe, who might be swarmed here by Forsyth and Bensi half a second back in closing. That's not the pit cycle that Barrett Rolfe would have wanted, Andrew.
Yeah, this was what I talked about earlier, Arjuna, where what Fowler was able to do was he was able to have that lower average lap time that just allowed him to be able to extend out and get in front of both Forsyth and Rolfe. But what Rolfe really needs here is he needs to not fight with these guys and get somehow back onto the back of of Chris Fowler. But Fowler is almost 2.5 seconds now up the track. So right now, Barrett Rolfe has the advantage of the freshest tires of the bunch, but he's got to be able to find a way to make that work and get back onto the back, or else he is going to miss out on a podium here.
Newsom still out on track, lap 33 and counting. Surely she's in this time around, as Matt Taylor will come in for his final stop of the year as well. Slowing down, so it indeed will be number 63 car onto the lane with one hand on the championship. No issues there. Pit lane has been a problem spot for Newsom over the course of 2021, Justin, but putting all the demons to bed there. What an entry that was.
Right up to the cone, timing it up right. Tough part's going to be that car coming out right in front of Matt Taylor. He's in space to be able to roll on through the pit lane, staying about 55 miles an hour or so. See that little slide, Newsom still able to get up onto the jacks. So this is going to be the interesting part, because it looks like Newsom's trying to position herself, take less fuel. Actually took a little more fuel, if anything, in terms of the pit stop box time.
Was 0.1 seconds slower than Malechka, who's already up to speed and sweeping through the middle of turns 1 and 2. Back to the race lead is the 91 car. But Alexis Newsom works herself off a pit lane, just has to survive 16 laps, and she will be the inaugural Lionheart Speedway Series champion. Well, are we going to see a caution? Given how things are spread out right now, other than the battle for 4th on back, I think I'd be a little bit shocked here, Andrew.
Yeah, I would be surprised if we saw a caution this late in the race, given how these guys are driving. They've all been doing a really, really good job of keeping things neat and giving each other enough space that there hasn't really been too many instances where it's been really close to coming together. So given how these guys are driving, as we see Forsyth getting really wide there, coming out of 2, just as I'm saying how good they're driving, I think that will be good. But definitely, as the laps come down, there will get a little bit more desperation. So look at, if there is going to be an issue, it's going to be right with the type of battle that you're seeing on screen here, which is a really close battle for that those top 5 positions. You might see Forsyth and Bensy start to get a little bit desperate here. So if there is an issue, it'll probably be around here.
Nick DeGroot onto the lane as well. Just going to cycle out in 14th position for the third of the factory back cars, and it is looking like it's not just a factory back driver that will win the Drivers' Championship. It will be a factory backed team championship as well, Justin. But how different things could have looked if Christopher was still in this championship. If Adrenaline Motorsports still had 3 cars out on track, they would definitely have looked at securing that championship even before we came here for this double points finale.
Yeah, it's just absolutely incredible, some of the luck that went the opposite way for some of these drivers over the past few rounds or so. We mentioned the struggle for Taylor, we mentioned the struggles in terms of luck for Fowler. It's just been that type of a season where, for some of the groups, they've had raw pace and raw speed, and then all of a sudden, boom, you end up getting involved in an incident, then another, and it just snowballs to where it's so difficult as a driver, and Andrew, I think, can touch upon this, where if you keep on having those build up more and more and more, it digs yourself into a hole where it almost feels impossible to stop having to dig yourself out of.
Well, and the thing is, too, Justin, is you really start to press and you start to make mistakes on your own that sort of puts you in the wrong positions. So you try to take control and really take the race and take the luck out of it, but you end up making your own bad luck at certain points. I go back to, again, Matt Taylor and Tony Schowen at Kansas. They were both came off a race where they could have done better at Richmond, and they were looking to try and seize control of the race, and so they were battling really, really hard, really towards the beginning and middle of the race, whereas if one of them had sort of backed off and allowed the race to sort of come to them, it's really hard to do that when you've had a run of bad luck, and then you just see that sort of snowball, and it's continued into this race for both Matt Taylor and Tony Schowen, where they were just pressing a little bit too hard, made some wrong moves, and it hasn't worked out for them.
10 laps to go, 20 miles in this 2021 season, 18 races. It's been great to break out the DW12 once more. See what surprises we have in store in 2022, potential changes to this car. We'll wait and see what happens across of the iRacing service, because of course plenty of excitement given that there are new vehicles coming with updates to open wheel competition. As a result of it, the Mercedes-AMG Petronas F1 vehicle has already meant that updates to the IR18 tire model have come. What other changes are in store for the entirety? Maybe we'll have some in-car adjustments for this car in 2022. We've talked about how it's just your 2 hands, your 2 feet. The tools available for the drivers to control this car. And talking of control, for Robert Malechka III, he's now 1.6 seconds clearer, Justin.
Yes, indeed. And that, again, came down to just the execution with the undercut. We've seen how effective it can be. Fowler's the perfect example of that, where, yes, the tire wear is now coming into the point where he's losing 0.2 per lap. But if you keep within a couple laps buffer on the undercut, it equalizes out to the point where you can keep the time pickup. And for Malechka III, as long as he keeps himself clean through this traffic, he's in a perfect spot to come away with the Triple Crown victory. Downside is he's lost a 10.5 since the start of that last sentence with the traffic.
But I think it's worth mentioning, Justin, you mentioned that Fowler's starting to lose time. Barrett Rolfe is now 1.4 seconds behind Chris Fowler, so he is cut in just over 14 laps. He's cut in over a second, so if he can get within a sniff of that draft for Chris Fowler, we might see a really nice battle here for third place as things wind down with only, we're coming to 6 laps to go here at the line.
For Malechka the third, it will be another victory in what has been an almost unparalleled campaign for him. You have to think about someone like Adam Blocker's dominance in the IndyCar series to talk about the streak that Malechka's been on. It will be his 7th victory in 13 races. It seems like when he finishes outside of a win, it's because he's had some sort of an issue, whether it be a crash, an error on pit lane, just misfortune in terms of timing things up. 5 poles to his name as well. He'll be one to watch in 2022. Newsom is close, not close enough, but here comes the charge from Barrett Rolfe, Justin. Now 3/10, 2.5 tenths behind Chris Fowler.
Has to rip that podium back. Here comes that run to the outside. Got the fresher tires and now the clean air on the front wing to make this work. Chris Fowler, nothing he can do there to defend. They try and snake down the backstretch. Here's the thing though, Newsom is using the traffic like slingshots for the final 4 laps. She's got a chance here if she plays this out perfectly.
But surely, no risk. That's got to be what's on the top of mind, forefront of the thinking for the 63 car with 4 laps to go. There you can see the gap is now down to 0.6 of a second. Factory backed running in a line. That'll be a good photo opportunity coming to the checkered flag, I'm sure.
Not sure if that's on their minds at this point, Andrew.
Yeah, it's just been so impressive. They've worked so well as a team, and I think that's really what separated them from the rest of this field today is more than anything else, this team today has really come together and worked so well together. We saw a little bit of fighting between the Race First boys earlier. We saw that Tony Schowen and Joe Branch really never got going with how Tony started this race, but Factory Back has done such a good job of working together, and they've dominated this race and this championship because of it.
And Andrew, what makes this DW12 so much fun on the ovals? We've seen some great driving, some great setups as well, but this car is just inherently designed for oval racing, very different to what we see with the IR18.
Yeah, the big thing with this car is it's really all about managing your tires and managing the aero. So you have the ability to, at the beginning of the run, stay close, make a lot of passes, but then things start to string out like we saw here today, and it really puts it in the driver's hand. So you see the likes of Malechka and Newsom, the cream really rises to the top with this car, and it produces some fantastic racing.
White flag in the air for the final time in 2021 and the Lionheart Speedway Series. Newsom is close, still a little bit too far behind, but Justin, she is closing and closing fast.
As long as Newsom gets a big enough run entering turn 3, potentially coming off the corner, she's got a great shot. Malechka to the third, playing almost too aggressively on the defense here.
The goal with the DW12 was to deliver something iconic. That's what we've seen in 2021. Malechka wins the thumbs up canter down 300 presented by -273. But your inaugural Lionheart Speedway Series champion is Alexis Newsom. What a season it has been. Ups and downs, twists and turns. But ultimately, it's Alexis Newsom, the first female champion in Lionheart Racing Series history.
An unbelievable night for Factory Backed. An unbelievable night for the career of Alexis Newsom. Alexis Newsom won in many different ways, from dominating performances to fuel strategy, and was the most consistent driver of the entire season. Well deserved the championship, but it was a team effort through and through.
And domination for Factory Back to close off this 2021 season. Not just Alexis Newsom, your driver's champion, but HyperX team champions for Factory Backed. What a day for the team. Barrett Rolfe completes the podium. Good drive from him, but once more qualifying issues just mean he wasn't at the front where he needed to be when all things were said and done. With that said though, let's go ahead and take a look at our CarNox race results after 300 miles of action at the Auto Club Speedway. No cautions for the second time in this DW12. What a race it was. Robert Malechka the third takes his 7th victory in 13 races, but Alexis Newsom, just 1/10 behind, is your champion in the Lionheart Speedway Series. Barrett Rolfe completes the podium with Chris Fowler, Caleb Bensley, Craig Forsyth, and Joe Branch, the cars on the lead lap, while Jeff Young, Gary Godso, Matt Houston round out the top 10. Christopher Kresge, Tony Schowen and Matt Wagner 11th through 13th. The cars one lap down with Nick DeGroot, Paul Jenkins, Trevor Malone, Alexander Van der Sant, Matt Taylor finishing the race. The final cars on track with George Anzaldo, Mike Rigney retiring with issues. Dean Moll, Charles Teed and AJ Musselman all getting mixed up in incidents midway through this race. And what a race it was under the lights here at the Auto Club Speedway to close off this 2021 season. And for the final time, we head into the HyperX post-race show because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders. We will wait to head down into HyperX Victory Lane for a chat with Alexis Newsom. We also do have a final post-season award show to come to you to close out the year. But Justin, what a year it was, and so much fun to be a part of it.
It was incredible through and through. Some of the battles we've seen throughout the campaign, as well as so many of the strategies that came into fruition throughout the campaign. It wasn't just as simple as, okay, this driver's quick. This is the end of the race right here. This series had plenty of twists and turns. Not one driver could completely control the consistency marks to be able to try and run away. It took all the way to the very end tonight to try and clinch things on forward to make sure how things would close on out. It was incredible, to say the very least. And keep in mind, many different drivers went to victory lane, not just Malechka III for 7 times, not just Alexis Newsom for 4 victories. Rolf, Taylor, Van der Sant, Schowen, Stouffer, Moll, Bensi all went to victory lane in their own unique ways.
Incredible season, and this DW12, it's an old car, yes, but it's put on a show for us, and well, I'm already now looking forward to 2022. We are waiting for our visit down into the HyperX Victory Lane to get to our post-race award show as well, post-season award show. And what a season it has been. Justin, I mean, just think back to what we've seen. What are some of your favorite races? We've seen fuel mileage races. We've seen drama to the finish lines like we saw last time at the Kansas Speedway. But I really think about the tone that was set in race 1 at Motegi, where we saw Dean Moll take a dramatic victory of his own. I think that really set the marker for the rest of these 18 races.
It absolutely did, because it made it clear that you could win in multiple different types of ways. Dean Moll won that race mainly in part because of being able to have the tire strategy gamble pay off in his direction to try and get the clean air at Twin Ring Motegi for the final few laps of that respective race. But then you compare that to some of the races that come into mind. I remember, for example, how emotional that race for Alexander Van der Sant was at Kentucky, to be able to stretch it an additional lap each run, how difficult that was to execute on fuel strategy, to be able to make it on fumes to win that respective race. That was emotionally huge. And then, of course, with seeing how Barrett Rolf had the pace all season, to the point where, of course, he was a championship contender by tonight, to come away with that win in Indianapolis was also very emotional to see. So plenty of historical moments and plenty of memorable moments in Lionheart lore in history.
Well, with that said, let's make our way down to HyperX Championship lane, as it were. Let's talk to Alexis Newsom in that number 63 car. Congratulations, Alexis. It's been a roller coaster year for you, but you are the inaugural Lionheart Speedway Series champion. Talk to us about this final race, though, and how you and your teammate Robert Malechka III controlled the race right from the start.
Oh, I was so nervous I'd end up messing this up somehow. With Rob just working with me through the whole race like that, trying to get the team the championship, and it's been a long season. I made a lot of mistakes, and I'm glad that it turned out this way.
And I mean, we were talking about that during the race itself. The fact that you've had an up and down season in the middle, it basically looked like you couldn't get any luck going your way, but you were able to bounce back. How tough was that for you mentally, and how were you able to rebound from what was a tough couple of months during the summer?
Well, it was spiraling there for a while. I kept thinking I couldn't run the race without keeping it off the wall. And I started driving at like 95% until I got my confidence back.
And now you still got one race to go in 2021 for the Lionheart IndyCar Series in their finale and Auto Club. What are you looking forward to in 2022, where hopefully we'll see you on double duty across of the entire year?
Oh, I hope so. I think I'll be invited back for the IndyCar Series, but I'm not sure. Sure. Hopefully, I'll be in that.
Well, I tell you what, Alexis, it's been a fantastic year for you, and now to present you with your championship award is Mark Cohn.
Well, Alexis, on behalf of the DMLC Racing Channel, I would like to congratulate you on the 2021 Lionheart Speedway Series Championship. You've had an incredible season, and we've got some nice prizes for you. Some nice cash and a Sim Experience AccuForce Pro V2 direct drive system. Congratulations again. Awesome run.
Thank you so much. All of you guys.
And so that was your 2021 champion, Alexis Newsom, for Factory Backed. Now, second place in the championship for Barrett Rolfe. Been up and down through the year, and now Mark Cohn is ready to present him with his championship award.
Well, Barrett, you had a tremendous run throughout the season. You had that awesome win at Indianapolis, and you too are going to be receiving some great prizes. Some money, some good HyperX equipment, pair of minus 273 gloves, SimVibe software key. Great job, Barrett. That was a great run throughout the year.
Floor is yours now, Barrett. Barrett seems to be so excited that we apparently don't have him here, speechless. Barrett, do we have a copy on you? Apparently not, so we will head over then from second place in the championship to HyperX Victory Lane, where Robert Malechka III is standing by. Rob, what a way to close out the 2021 season for you. And at the end of the day, if you had been around for those first couple of races, it could have been a very different story for the championship.
Yeah, first, hats off to Alexis. Great season. She deserved the championship there. Glad we could, work together there the whole race. We brought our way away from the pack initially, and then we both knew that one lap pace we were faster than the field. So, got her the championship. I got the win, which I'll take, and I believe that's 7 wins for me out of 13 races, so I would definitely take that as well.
Yeah, 7 wins, 13 races, and I feel like when you weren't winning, you just had bad luck involved in incidents, often by through no fault of your own.
Yeah, that's racing, it is what it is. Glad I didn't dominate, because viewership-wise, that's not great. I wish we could have put on a better show, but I think the right person won the championship in the end.
Well, even though you only participated in 13 of the 18 races, you are third place in the championship, and Mark Cohn is here to present your third place championship award.
Well, Robert, you had a heck of a season, and of course we've got some prizes for you as well. Money, you get a choice of HyperX keyboard, mouse, or headset, and you're going to get a pair of minus 273 gloves. Good job throughout the season. Well done.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Thank you, George, as well. You guys put on an amazing league that, I didn't find out until it was too late, but thank you to HyperX for sponsoring this series. Thank you as well at RaceSpot for broadcasting and announcing.
So that was winner here today to close off 2021. That was Robert Malechka III. And now standing by to present your Driver of the Year, presented by the DMLC Racing Channel, Mark Cohn, take it away.
Driver of the Year. This award is unique in that it is not given solely based on speed, but on heart. The one that does so much not just on the track, but off it as well. It may be the friendly face that welcomes newcomers, or the one that helps those struggling in need or has questions. The Driver of the Year is the one that makes the positive impact on the league. The driver I have chosen is one who has a few years within the league under his belt. This proven winner gives it 100% in every race he competes in, and will race you as clean as a whistle. Off the track, he's someone who will always tell you like it is, but in a respectful manner. He loves Lionheart, and Lionheart loves this class act. Our 2021 Lionheart Speedway Series Driver of the Year is Mike Rigney.
Wait, what?
Congratulations, Mike. You're our 2021 Speedway Series Driver of the Year.
Wow. Really? Wow. That's you guys fibbed. That's not the name I saw on the list in the admin chat. Wow. I don't have words. Thank you. It's an honor. I do love this league. I love everybody in this league, and I'm speechless. Thank you, Mark. That's incredibly kind of you. And there's so many more well-deserving guys than me, but to be honored in such a way is unbelievable. You've blown me away. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And a well-earned Driver of the Year award for someone that helps out behind the scenes as well. Next up, it will be your Rookie of the Year, presented by Butt Kicker. We are endeavoring to get Chris Fowler, who will be awarding that trophy, into the RaceSpotTV commentary booth. I do believe we have Chris Fowler standing by now. And Chris, you're here to present the Rookie of the Year award.
Yes, sir, man. The Rookie of the Year, it was a tough battle all year long. We had so many rookies with the being the first season, but your Rookie of the Year is your season champion, and that is Alexis Newsom with 4 wins this season. So congratulations to Alexis Newsom on Rookie of the Year.
Well, thank you, guys.
Well, and I tell you what, since we have Alexis here in the booth, Chris, you're also here to award the Team's Championship, which goes to Factory Backed.
Yes, sir. So our team championship, again, it came down to the very last race. It's been a phenomenal season in the team championship all year. Adrenaline led all the way up to the very last race. Factory Backed with the 1-2 finish tonight took the championship. So congratulations to Factory Backed on the team championship. And they'll get some awards from HyperX, Butt Kicker, minus 273. So congratulations, guys.
Thanks. We had a pretty good season. It was a lot of fun.
Well, we've also got Rob Malechka III here. Rob, Team Championship, what does it mean for you, Alexis, and Nick DeGroot?
It's great, we all kind of started late, but I think throughout the season, as a team, we worked the best out of anyone. We locked in there this last race and worked great together to get Alexis the championship.
So your team's champions in 2021, Robert Malechka, Alexis Newsom, Nick DeGroot, all 4 Factory Backs. Now here to present your Cleanest Driver of the Year award is Tyler Groff. He's standing by with your winner in 2021.
Hey guys, the Cleanest Driver of the Year award presented by Graphics Esports. This is based on the lowest ink average out of the entire season. The winner of that goes to AJ Musselman.
Hey guys.
Well, AJ, it's been a fun year for you. Cleanest Driver indicates just how clean it's been. Talk to us about 2021.
Yeah, those who know me well know I do take a lot of pride in being a clean driver out there. And in a car that does so much pack racing, to still be able to keep it clean and come out as the cleanest driver, it is something I'm pretty proud of. I would have loved Iron Man too, but that wasn't meant to be tonight. Tough to end the season like we did, but great season overall. Thanks to everybody at Team Race First for the moral support all season long. I can't wait for next year.
Congratulations, AJ. Can't wait to see you in 2022. And here as well to present the Turning Point Award, the driver that improves the most from the first half of the year to the second half, is Tyler Graf.
Yep, so the Turning Point Award is also presented by Graphics Esports. This is, like Arjuna said, the best turnaround in the season. And it was pretty obvious based on how they were running. As long as things weren't running into him, he was having good runs. And it couldn't go to somebody more deserving. Turning Point Award this year goes to Chris Fowler. And he'll be getting a set of spotlights and a pair of minus 2073 gloves.
Nice, thanks, Tyler. Appreciate it. The first season, the beginning of the season just started off really rough, and then just started getting things turned around in the second half. So hopefully, we'll get some work in the off season, be ready, prepared, and have a much better start to next season. So we're looking forward to next season.
And well, doesn't look as though we have the winner of the Iron Man Award for an interview here today, but George Anzaldo is here to present that award. George, take it away.
Yeah, so the Iron Man is obviously it's kind of a cool award. It goes to the driver who's completed the most miles throughout a season, and that's also without drops. So it also shows the commitment that a driver needs to have in order to stay clean, stay on the track, and complete the most miles. And that's going to be presented to Joe Branch this year. He's our Ironman Award winner for 2021, presented by Carnox.
A driver that was mixing up for the championship at times, didn't go his way sometimes. Plenty of interesting strategies that we saw from Joe over the course of the year. And to wrap up 2021, to wrap up this post-season award show, George, talk to us about everyone that makes all of this fun stuff happen. There's a huge team behind Race Control, but there's so many names, so many partners that support you as well.
Oh, it's been phenomenal, all the support that we've received. First and foremost, want to thank the administration team and the drivers who make the racing and the on-track product possible. I certainly like to thank RaceSpot for all of the amazing coverage that we received throughout the year, as well as ESTV for showing our races to a large audience there in the global esports community. Certainly we can't forget to mention HyperX as our sponsor for our entire series. They provided the amazing equipment and headsets for us so that we have great communications and the sim comes through so accurately, and it's fantastic to have them on board. Butt Kicker, Sim Experience, minus 273, Carnox, Graphics Esports. Tyler did an amazing job all year long with our race logos and helping us out with our various e-flyers and things like that, so that we can stay in touch with our fans and keep everyone going, and as well as SimRace247 for posting all of our stories. It's been a great season. We want to thank all of our 2021 sponsors. There's certainly a few more there that have helped, and also those that have helped behind the scenes all year long. It's been fantastic. We're certainly ready for 2022. We're excited for the upcoming season. We're certainly looking for drivers, people who are interested. Certainly visit the website and submit an application. We're looking for the next wave of drivers to join Lionheart. So again, just thank you to everyone who's been involved with the league, and we're looking forward to another year.
Still plenty of racing to go as well, George. You've got IndyCar Retro Series to come to a close. What do you think is going to happen there? Of course, championship decided already in the IndyCar Series. Adam Blocker is now a 4-time champion, but a Retro Series, it's all to play for there.
I absolutely love the Retro Series. It's going to be exciting to watch. I think the racing is probably going to be a little bit closer, as we've seen with some of our previous races with the Lotus 79, how it can be some really close, intense racing. Anything can happen. I do think that everyone's going to be going for it, and we're just going to have to wait and see how that all plays out. The IndyCar, I think those drivers are going to put on a great show as well. Everyone loves Auto Club. It's been a fun way to end our season. We've been doing it since the league has been around, so there's a lot of history there. And I think that's just one race that certainly everyone wants to win, and also our final Triple Crown for each season. So it's going to be fun to watch. I hope everyone can tune in, and we're looking forward to see how everything plays out here.
Thanks for joining us, George. But to wrap things up for this 2021 Lionheart Speedway Series, let's start with you, Andrew. Clean, caution-free in 150 laps, 300 miles at Auto Club. Hard task, but these drivers have shown time and time again just how capable they are of going wheel to wheel without causing too many incidents, and what a show it was to close out our season.
It truly was a showcase of just how high the level of talent is in the Lionheart series. As you mentioned, so many rookies in this field today, but they all performed like veterans, and none more so than our champion Alexis Newsom and her teammate Robert Malechka III taking home the team championship as well. Just an absolutely fabulous race and an excellent way to end this season, and I can't wait to see what the other Lionheart series has in store for us as well.
And for you, Justin, I mean, started back in March. It's been a long road to get here at the end of November with a new champion, our first female champion in the Lionheart Racing Series. It's been so much fun, and we still got a couple of races left to go.
Absolutely, when it comes to some of the action, it's been intense, it's been busy. It's been hectic for some of these drivers, but in the end, the best of the best came out with the hardware and finished out on top. This is the type of series, this is the type of sanctioning body where it takes so much to be able to win, so much to be able to prove that you belong. And in the end, we've seen many of these drivers make a name for themselves this season, an incredible Speedway Series campaign. I can't wait to see how IndyCar and Retro Series competition ends as well.
Plenty more Lionheart action to come. 500 miles in the IR18 here in the Golden State at the Auto Club Speedway this Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Pacific. It's the Sim Experience race for the championship. The championship may have been decided, but there is plenty to play for. Don't miss any of the action here live on RaceSpotTV. A reminder as well that you can keep up to date with all things Lionheart across of social media, while ESTV has your esports needs covered. For sim racing, look no further than RaceSpotTV. Hit that red subscribe button. Hit the bell next to it as well to get notified every single time we go live with a great sim racing series that we get to cover. But for now, the road for the Lionheart Speedway Series in 2021 comes to an end. It's been an incredible ride, and on behalf of the entire team at RaceSpotTV, we congratulate Alexis Newsom, the inaugural champion in the Lionheart Speedway Series. We'll see you in 2022, but for now, it's fireworks going off in the Auto Club Speedway.